Welcome back, everyone. We continue now with the talk show on AI and innovation with 3 panelists. 1 live here at the table in 's-Hertogenbosch and 2 digitally remote and at the same time here with us on the screen. With me here in Den Bosch is Rina Joosten. She is the co-founder and CEO of Seedling Technologies. Rina, welcome.
Thank you.
Could you briefly explain what is the link between Seedling Technologies, what do they do, and what is the link with AI and innovation?
Yeah, so Seedling develops deep learning algorithms that can analyze natural language and predict, based on a very simple interview, how likely someone is fitting a certain job or certain company culture.
All right. That is very brief and easy explanation. Even I can follow it.
Yeah.
And it means probably that the chance of an onboarding process being successful is higher once you do this analysis.
Yes, I think it should be much better than using a CV or information in a CV, modeling information from a CV or an unstructured interview.
Yeah, that's so old-fashioned.
It's very old-fashioned. Yes.
All right. We continue also to introduce the guests that are joining us remote. Koen Arns, he is the founder and CEO of Bluetick. Koen, can you hear us loud and clear?
I do, thank you.
Great. I can also see you on the screen multiple times. Yes, now I see you once. That's enough. What is Bluetick doing exactly when it comes to AI and innovation? Can you briefly explain to the viewers?
Of course. So with Bluetick, we basically create search technology that actually is able to think along with the end user. So we track the behavior of user of our platform, and we use this behavior to suggest documents that actually fit within the search query of this person. So it's a bit like the techniques that Netflix uses to also suggest movies and series. We also do this, but then with textual documents.
Okay, sounds intriguing. And what kind of textual documents should I think of?
So to start, we focus on the legal industry, where we focus on legal precedents and legal articles. But this is just a starter, and our ambitions are way bigger than this. But this is where we started our journey.
Okay, the sky is the limit. I understand, of course, as is with AI. And also joining us here is Maurice van Tilburg. You are the director Access to Capital from TechLeap. Could you also tell us what TechLeap is doing with regards to AI and innovation?
Yeah, hi, I hope you can see me actually. I see a black box here on my side. Does that work? Or?
I can hear you, but I cannot see you yet. But I'm quite sure this can be solved.
Okay, well, I'll solve that later. Maybe AI can help.
Yeah.
Simulate my face.
Yeah.
So TechLeap is a foundation in the Netherlands that does, on the one hand, a lot of data research on the evolution of and the bottlenecks that startups face. And at the same time, we try to stimulate and plan interventions and connect the ecosystem in a better way. Yeah. And for example, currently we are studying the AI ecosystem, and we plan to launch a report the coming week around the status of AI in the Netherlands and also compared to Europe and other parts of the world.
Okay, thank you very much. And how long have you been with TechLeap this far?
I've been a bit more than a year. I'm actually the director of capital, and since some months I'm also managing director of TechLeap. Before that, I was the CEO of the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, so some people might know me from there. But now focusing really on the startup ecosystem and make sure we organize also enough capital for these companies to scale, for example.
And eventually also to get AI companies also to the Amsterdam Exchange, and then the circle is complete.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Good. We ask all of you a few questions that are related to AI and innovation, and I start here in the studio with Rina. What is the relation or confrontation with academia and the startup world when it comes to AI?
You mean confrontation or collaboration?
It depends. What do you see?
Well, we definitely collaborate, and it's very important, I think, if you work on the forefront of innovation, that as scientists, we leverage, of course, knowledge that is out there, and we can also offer large data sets that are interesting, I think, also for research purposes. So we've already, since the beginning of our company, collaborated with leading professors in this area globally. They sit in our scientific board, so they're a large part of what we do, and we collaborate on research. They help us to sometimes outline difficulties, or we outline challenges where they can help us with. So for us, it's a big an important element of our company.
And do you have one example of one specific professor or person that helped you with a specific aspect of your business, for instance?
Yeah, well, we work, for example, in the area of computational linguistics. We're very happy with the support of Professor Dalemans from Antwerp University. We work with Gert-Jan Hofstede, whose father was actually doing this famous research on organizational culture.
At IBM, yeah.
Yeah, at IBM. So we're building upon their research and taking that a step further, yeah.
All right. Koen, how is that for you? How do you collaborate, or do you confrontate academics? And perhaps there's also cooperation.
Yeah, so to start, we have to be realistic. We are quite an early stage startup still. So at this moment, we mostly are consumers of academic research. But I actually just talked to my CEO or CTO about this topic, and we are planning to give back to also the world of research what we discover. Because at this moment, we mainly use the most recent natural language processing techniques, and we apply them in the legal domain. So in this area of application, we find some really interesting results. So we are planning to give back to the research industry in the future. But for now, we are mainly consumers.
All right, and you are actually a spin-off, you not personally, but the company is a spin-off from the JADS playground. So does that mean that you still have ties to JADS?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So we, even though we moved to Amsterdam and Almere in the last couple of years, we do have still quite some close ties with JADS. Some of them in the NLP thesis circles, for example. Some of them, just by collaborating with some more industrial applications as well. So there definitely still are some ties there.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to Maurice. Maurice, I'm curious, as you are Director Access to Capital, if you can also get access to knowledge. I'm sure you do. And how is the relationship between startups and academia in your experience?
So I think overall, and sorry for my camera not working. I don't know what's wrong. It worked all day, so it seems not to work. But anyway, so we do see that, for example, that AI, of course, has different ways of entering into businesses. It can be through startups, or it's also part of a lot of existing corporate businesses, of course. We do see that overall, some things go well, so there's clear growth in the amount of startups with AI, and also the ones that take it as a core technology and some more as a side technology of what they do. We do see, for example, that in Europe, the total amount invested is larger than before. It's 8% invested of investment goes to AI type of companies, while 10% of the overall startups actually involve AI, so it's a bit lower than the ratio of startups. At the same time, there is good funding, and the most difficult funding is actually in the areas of where it is more connected to deep tech. So if it's really software-based AI, then generally funding is easier than when it's linked to deep tech. And I think the negative is that, for example, in EU, it's massively growing the funding, but in the Netherlands, it's a bit stagnating. So that's something we definitely need to work on. Make sure there's more money made available for AI startups in the Netherlands.
And Maurice, maybe it's not a true dilemma, but suppose you want to get access to capital or to funding. Would you rather be a startup or a scientist? What is easier?
Well, I think there's a clear thing that we see is that there's a lot of actually the Netherlands, for example, is very good in research and IP and these sort of things. but bringing it to market is still a bit of a challenge. So how do we combine these theoretical academic insights with the insights to actually run a business and also at some point scale? And I think that's something where we really hope that also other business areas and businesses can help with bringing in more of that knowledge. So in that sense, I'm rather a founder than an academic only, because at least as a founder, I can think about bringing everything I do and make impact in the marketplace. But maybe that's a bit of a luxurious position to be in at the moment.
I'm quite sure it is. At the same time, you mentioned the word impact. I would like to take that as a theme also to Rina. When it comes to startups, they're looking, of course, for funding and for knowledge, but eventually this all should also create impact on, for instance, society. Do you see a shift from a focus on funding to a focus on societal impact?
Well, you need both, I think. So you need to have, at least, I mean, being an entrepreneur for quite a while now, I mean, it's not always sunny, right? The only way to really also keep going is if you have a certain goal, like a certain vision in mind, the impact that you want to create. But at the same time, like Maurice was outlining, you need to make sure that you actually create impact. And if you want to accelerate impact, you need funding. So you need actually both, I think, to continue to be successful and to keep going.
And what is the societal impact of Seedling in a very bright and sunny scenario?
Well, I think the reason why I was one of the founders, we started the company, was because we see a lot of bias in human decision making. So how could we help with new technology to help people give them information on which they can base fairer decision making about other people? So we've seen now, I mean, across the board at our clients that, for example, they have increased the diversity of their hiring by 33% compared to previous years. So we see a large impact on what we're doing, but that was also the starting point.
Yeah, I see. All right. Thank you very much for this example. It makes it very clear. Koen, when it comes to the legal text, that's your starting point, of course. What impact do you have in mind when it comes to societal impact?
So Bluetick is basically founded by the means of solving a super specific problem, being that at this moment, lawyers cannot access many legal precedents because the current search alternatives are only based on keywords. So a lawyer is forced to translate their complex search question into just a couple of keywords, which actually leaves quite a big pile of data and relevant legal documents unable to be found. So you can translate this to us improving the access to justice in that case.
Okay, so we have the justice and diversity here, the access to justice. Maurice, we can now see you. That is a nice bonus. Also for you, the question, how does TechLeap contribute to societal impact with the support that you provide for the ecosystem?
I think it's not per se only through AI. I mean, we have several themes where we actually focus, and what we've seen, for example, in funding. The funding challenges vary very much per sector. So life science faces different issues than fintech or enterprise software. So I think what we've done last year, for example, was one theme around flattening the climate curve, where we actually invited everyone that contributes to that theme, and we actually brought a lot of investors together and to see actually together with the Dutch government and Dutch funds how we can make more money structurally available. And of course, I mean, some of those, almost in every segment that we look, AI is there. I mean, if you look at energy, for example, it's not maybe the generation of energy, but the whole idea of storing and routing and efficiently transporting is definitely an area where AI plays a big role. So definitely is something where impact for us and applying technology to make a better world is a key thing. But it's difficult to always directly connect it to AI. But AI plays a large role in several important industries like fintech, making wealth available to many people. I think there's where AI can also play a role. In health, of course, where we see other bottlenecks arising with the access to data, where there might be a struggle for startups to get access to the right data. But also in the area of fintech, for example, and even food, there's a lot of AI actually involved. So I think in that sense, for TechLab, it's really, we always make sure that we push themes that make a clear impact, and then often AI will be part of that.
All right. Maurice, we stick with you for a moment, and then we reverse to via Koen to Rina with the final question, unfortunately, because of the lack of time. It would be the question of internationalization. Of course, ICAI is very much Dutch-based and tries to create this Dutch ecosystem. What is the role between this Dutch ecosystem and the international community?
Yeah. I think the great thing about Holland is so small that I think every startup needs to think international. So, and the Dutch market in itself as a market to sell your product can only maybe be a first step, but shouldn't be your horizon. So I think in that sense, thinking international is important. At the same time, I think it's important for companies actually to think like, okay, where's my logical next market? For some it makes sense to pick like a Holland-like next market in Europe, because it's an easier step in terms of regulation and the understanding. And for some really like software type of companies with a clear business model may make a leap directly to the US in terms of market. So I think this is something where also TechLeap has a program like Go Global, where we advise people and bring founders in connection with other founders internationally, for example, and also help with selecting what is your best market. I think that's quite key and sometimes quite tricky for entrepreneurs, and sometimes they're too quick, and then you burn a lot of energy, especially when you start too quick in the US. You end up paying heavily for this in burn rate and not making the right results.
All right, thank you. Koen, what is your take on this question of internationalization?
So I partly agree with Maurice, saying that it's important to aim big, aim high. Especially when pitching our business to investors, of course they all want to hear sort of the big story of what our ultimate goal is. But on the other hand, I do really see the importance of starting small and knowing your customer like extremely well. And in our case, we did it in the Netherlands, and at this moment, we do know our Dutch customers fairly good actually. So at this moment, we also start to explore possibilities for other countries. But I do think it's really important to start small, and in our case, start locally as well.
Okay, so if I summarize, think big, start small. That is what you contribute. Rina, what is your take on the internationalization?
Well, for us, it was a little bit the other way around. We founded a company in China, actually, where I lived and worked for 8 years before coming to become a Dutch company. So we actually did it the other way around. We now operate in 15 countries. We just opened, or we're planning to open now through partners in Brazil. So we already think and execute actually quite globally. But of course, that takes a lot of efforts, right? Especially if you look to the science side again, if you have to build up data sets, especially if you deal with language like we do, you have to build up corpus, like language data in different languages with different labels. So it does take planning, it does take a lot of efforts to actually do that if you want to be a global company, and that's always what we intended to do.
All right. Yeah, well, it takes effort. It takes also, it is good to think big and to start small. That is the summary of this brief discussion, this talk show that we had. Thank you very much for your contributions, Koen, Maurice, and Rina. I hope to talk to you again one other occasion. For now, it's time that we move to the next breakout sessions because they start in less than a minute. You all probably put in the chat which city you chose. It could be either Wageningen this round, Delft or Eindhoven. And our Zoom moderators will make sure that you end up in the city of your choice. After half an hour, I welcome you back here in the chapel in 's-Hertogenbosch. There's no choice there. See you back in half an hour and enjoy your breakout rooms.